From the team behind the award-winning documentary She, welcome to She Goes by Jane. I'm your host, author, and poet Aimée Baker.
And I'm Vanessa Ciccarelli, photographer and independent filmmaker. At the end of this episode and every episode, we will be joined by a special guest who will read an original poem by Aimée Baker about the women we're featuring. This episode features actress Raven Goodwin.
Hey, Vanessa.
Hi, Aimée.
Last week, we covered kind of the beginning stages of what happened to Girly Chu. And just as she was like trying to leave her abusive relationship with her husband.
Right. So we left off right as her friends were trying to contact her, right?
Right. It was very clear that something was up. And thankfully, she had set in place all of these like safety systems. And then this week, we're going to get more into what happened to her and what we know. So to set the stage for what happened last time, Girly came from Malaysia in the early 90s and married a man that told her a really bunch of complicated lies. And through their marriage, she started to unravel what those lies were and experienced a lot of violent interactions with him before finally being able to file for divorce. And so we're like at the stage of her story where things get like so much more wrapped up in like who he was and what he might have done. And so it's a bit hard to keep her more in focus here as we kind of transition into like what someone did to her.
So at this point, Ernie knows that Girly's not answering the phone, and Girly's already given that warning to everybody at work that it's like, if something happens to me, this is what's happened.
Right. So her boss starts immediately calling like the non-emergency line, because at this time it is non-emergency, like there's just something going on, they just need to check in. Her work colleague, the same guy who helped her move in, is like, I'm going to go to her apartment.
Right.
Like, I know where it is. I'm going to go check this out. So we got the phone calls going into the police who are telling her boss, like, it's not been 24 hours.
Right. But clearly at this point, given her history,
right, like
they could have maybe
done
a check.
Which, by the way, it's important to note that the 24-hour thing is largely made up. If there's like an at-risk person, like they don't need to be missing for 24 hours.
Right.
Right. So don't let people push you off for that reason. So work colleague goes to the apartment. Her car is in the parking lot. Okay. It's important to note that her car windshield has been like hit at some point in the past that Girly thought was her husband like did that to her car. So it's clearly in the parking lot. She lives on the first floor. He goes to her apartment. It's locked. He can't get in. Nobody's answering. So he's like, I'm going to go talk to the building manager. Gets the building manager, and they decide to enter the building together.
Good. Okay.
Meanwhile, her boss is on like the fourth phone call to police. Like she's been calling repeatedly. And they've decided to send an officer.
Okay. It's nice that she has people looking out for her.
Right. Yes. So they knew immediately that they should like spring into action. They go into the apartment and there's like nothing clearly amiss except for the part where there is some like bleach stains on her carpet.
Okay.
Kind of near the front door, like 3 big bleach spots.
Can they tell if they're recent?
Well, they should have been able to tell they were recent because subsequently people are going to enter and say, this place smells very strongly of bleach.
Right. You'd think it would either be wet or smell of bleach or something,
right.
You know?
So the place in the reports like definitely smells like bleach. But like there's not just like something that is like clearly wrong in the situation. So the 2 men decide to leave the apartment. And one of them, the apartment manager, calls the police and is like, there's nothing going on here. So the police officer who is responding gets a call to cancel.
Okay.
He's like, well, I'm practically pulling into the parking lot, so I'm just going to like get out. But there he meets the work colleague and the apartment manager, and they're like, nothing's going on. And he's like, cool, nothing's going on, and leaves.
Yeah. Doesn't want to see for himself.
No. I mean, I think like often about how like sometimes like men just reassure other men that there's not a problem. Meanwhile, like women are like, there's a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
But then that's why women always get called crazy because we're always like,
There's a
there's a
problem.
problem. And then a bunch of men are being around us saying, no, there's not.
No, there's not.
You
Yeah.
need to calm down.
Yeah. Yeah. Meanwhile, like there's some other stuff that goes on, but kind of to fast forward the story, they decide to recheck at some point. So they actually go in when Girly doesn't appear, but also at the same time elsewhere. There is a man who is driving to various rest stops outside of Albuquerque because his job is to pick up the trash from the rest stops.
Okay.
So he's on his way there and he sees in the roadway like what appears to him to be like a gray blanket.
Okay.
So fortunately, this man decides to stop. Like, I'm not sure.
Right. I would never stop for a blanket on the road. You would think it's just something that blew off someone's car.
Right. But he decides to stop. Right.
Okay.
Maybe because he's already picking up trash. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. But he gets out. He goes over to it. It is not a blanket. It is a gray tarp.
Okay.
Okay. So he like looks at this tarp and he's like, there is blood on this tarp.
Okay.
There are long black hairs. There's some like crumpled up duct tape.
Okay. So there's a lot of stuff on this tarp.
There's a lot of stuff, right? And then nearby are some articles of clothing. So a blouse, underwear, shorts. Then there's some like blood splattering on those as well.
Okay.
So he's like, someone might be in distress. He goes and checks under a road culvert, like make sure like nobody's down there, nobody is. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go take all of this stuff and turn around and go to town and give this over to a police officer.
Okay, so it was nice. It was lucky he did that, I guess. Was
Right.
it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So he spots this evidence. Also, Girly's wallet is found in the middle of an intersection by somebody else.
Okay.
Right, who initially thinks the wallet is empty, but then sees inside that it's got her foreign ID card in it. So you've got like the people who are calling, being like, "Could you check in on Girly?" You've got someone else who's found bloody tarp and clothing, who's now brought that in, and you've got someone who's found the wallet with her ID in it. So like pieces are coming together
Right.
that is
And her
not good.
car is still at the apartment, and the apartment has bleach in it. Like, there's a lot of
Right.
not so great looking things happening.
Well, so the police don't know yet that there's bleach in it, but
They don't know that
all
yet.
of these
Okay.
things like cause them to go back to the apartment.
Okay, good.
So they go inside, they see the bleach, and they're like, suspicious.
Yes.
Yeah. So clearly there's something going on, but they have no clue where she is.
Okay.
So they start taking like evidence. So they're checking out the bleach stains. They've luminoled the room to see like if there's blood. There is. There's some small blood spots as well, like on the bottom of the couch skirt. So there's like clearly been some blood action in this space. Okay. So like something has happened and they've got to figure it out.
Okay. Good Lord.
At this point, it's not necessarily clear that Girly has been murdered, although all signs are pointing in that direction.
Right.
The tarp does have blood on it. It is not enough blood to indicate like loss of life. It's like essentially like a cup's worth.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to lose a cup of blood, but like
Right. Well, and then there's the blood that could have been in the apartment, and like,
right,
there could be more than a cup out there.
right. Ugh. Yeah. Okay. So because of the restraining order, they know they need to like question the husband.
Right.
You know, so now it's September 10th, and they're like, we gotta go like talk to this guy. We gotta figure out what's going on, etc., etc. Except he has disappeared. He's gone.
He's gone now. Okay.
Yeah.
And do we know, like, is he still going by the name he was using when he
yes.
was with Girly?
Yes. So the thing, I can tell you where he is. Do you want to know where he is?
Yeah, of course I want to know.
Oh, you're gonna love this one. A woman
Okay.
on the day that Girly disappeared came to Albuquerque from her home in South Carolina to meet her fiance.
Who's obviously the husband?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And she thinks that they're moving in together, which they do. She drives him back from Albuquerque to her home in South Carolina because this is her new partner.
Still, I'm going to keep asking, how does this man have enough hours in a day to accomplish all of this?
I'm not sure. He manages it, though.
He really does.
Yeah. I think sometimes, like, when I think about this case, I'm like, oh, like, what's the impact of, like, loneliness on decision making, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's certainly not lonely.
He is certainly not lonely. No.
Others might be, but not him.
No. So he is in South Carolina. So without him present, we're left with, or the police were left with, the mistress. She's the only one that they know of who's like connected to this so far.
Okay, and this is the UFO mistress,
This is
not the one he's currently living with. Because there's just too many mistresses now at this
Yes, this is the UFO
mistress.
mistress.
Okay.
The police are left with the mistress, the UFO mistress, as their like kind of only like point of contact.
Okay.
She basically paints this portrait of him as being like, you know, practically bedridden with like leukemia, and then she's just caring for him. And she like even plays it off like, oh, I barely even know how to pronounce his name. Right.
Okay.
But during this process, they basically call a grand jury, and the grand jury's job is to decide if there's like enough evidence to like move forward in the case, right? Because all they know now is they have a missing person, so they want to move forward with like, you know, potentially charging some people. They want to like maybe move this forward to a murder case.
Right.
Right. So the grand jury's job is to like look at all the evidence they've collected thus far and kind of make a determination. And so they bring the mistress in front of the grand jury, and basically they think that she is going to be the person that provides evidence about the husband.
Okay.
Right? So that's why she's there. They're like, this is our person. But basically during her time in front of the grand jury, which lasts about a day and a half, they are like, we should suspect this lady too.
Okay.
Right. So she's very like cold and unfeeling when it comes to talking about Girly. She like says some like complicated and kooky things about aliens.
Okay.
So they're like, we're going to look into her. So they put her under 24-hour like surveillance. They like tap her phone. It seems clear that she knows that she's being surveilled, or just like suspects it in the first place, right?
Okay.
So they've got her, and they're like, we need to do something. They find out where the husband is, and he is arrested in South Carolina,
Okay.
and brought back. And then there's like the third person, M.
Oh, okay.
Who's been a like outside of it, but like basically people knew that they were connected. Now, during this process, like people start coming forward to say certain things. So we know that like the mistress and the husband are pretty suspect at this point.
Okay.
Right. But this other player, M, they start putting together kind of the timeline of where everyone is on the day of the murder, what we now know is a murder, right?
Okay.
The last time they see Girly. So while Girly is at work, like the three of these people are like doing some suspicious things. So the husband goes to a store and buys like a ninja sword.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. Then one of the UFO people, UFO club members.
Okay.
UFO.
Yeah.
UFO believer. Anyway.
Let's go club member.
Club member. One of the club members sees the three of them at a bookstore in Albuquerque, and he says they're like all acting suspicious. Like they all seem like really anxious. Like for some reason the husband and the mistress are communicating with each other via walkie-talkie.
Nothing this guy does sounds practical.
No. The UFO guy, you know, he sits down with this group of three people, and the mistress and husband get up, and that's when M says that he's been hired to kill Girly.
And this is before.
This is before. So this
Okay.
is like the afternoon before Girly goes missing.
Why would he tell somebody that?
he told like a bunch of people.
Why?
I have some questions about that man.
Right.
Okay. He's implicated in this mix as well, right? So like there's a lot going on.
And nobody wanted to be. If he told many people that, not one of them
It's
wanted to look into that.
like, hey, maybe I should call someone now. Like
Yeah.
before that. Yeah, I have questions about that.
Okay.
So they're like, okay, we're sorting through all of these situations with the three of them. You know, when the husband is arrested in South Carolina, they discover a carpet steam cleaner at the
Okay.
residence. And they're like, we are going to investigate that. There's all of these moving parts that are going on. Meanwhile, a forensic scientist has discovered that, you know, some of the bloodstains on the carpet in Girly's apartment are hers. Some of the blood stains are the mistress's.
Okay.
She also discovers that some of the blood on the blouse is mixed with something else, and that something else is saliva, and that I know
You.
that saliva is from the husband,
Okay.
right? And then the blood on the tarp is Girly's.
Okay.
Okay, so like we've like linking all of these things up. Now, at this point, they're starting to build a case against at least the mistress and the husband because they're like
Well, it can't get more clear than this at this point,
at
can
this
it?
point, right? So they're they are both arrested in this process. Eventually, in this process, they also find a samurai sword in the ceiling of the mistress's garage.
Okay.
Okay.
What are we doing with samurai swords?
Well, the samurai sword has blood on the handle, which matches the husband's. There's also blood on the blade, but it's been wiped with something
Okay.
that like degraded the DNA, so like a cleaner of some sort. So they know that it's blood, but they can't determine whose blood it is.
But if you're going to be this guy, why would you use a normal weapon?
Yeah, so we don't know if that's what was used.
It fits.
It certainly does. So, Girly is missing. Meanwhile, her family is in Malaysia, right?
Right.
There's a long, complicated process where, they're building this case against them, the husband and the mistress. And they have to like prove that blood belongs to Girly's, that it's her blood. So what they do is they have to get like DNA confirmation from the parents. There's like this long involved process to like basically say definitively like this.
So they need samples from the parents? Is that how they would do
Yes.
something like that? Okay.
But like that is not easy.
Well, no, we're not in the same country.
Right. And basically the various like consulates are like, no, not happening.
Okay.
Eventually they do manage to get blood from the parents like shipped to the United States for like sampling, but by the time it arrives it's too degraded and they have to like match like the DNA from hair samples. This takes over a year. So like this process is not fast. So all of that is going on, but they do prove that it's her blood. So
Okay.
like that any line of defense there is taken away. Meanwhile, the mistress and the husband are both in jail while they're awaiting their respective trials because the evidence has built up immensely against them.
Yes.
Right. There is a lot of different things, like the steam cleaner that is at the apartment in South Carolina that has blood in it, but it also has, this is really bizarre, like hair, but the hair is like deer hair.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Deer hair and
How
rabbit
is it-
hair, and
Oh.
there's also cat hair. There's cat hair and deer hair and other hairs on Girly's carpet and also on the tarp. Some of it is dyed pink.
What is all this hair from? And nobody has pets, right? And who has a pet deer?
Who has a pet?
The rabbit and the cat, maybe.
Okay.
Somebody has a pet along the way, but
We
this
know
deer.
the mistress has cats.
Okay.
Girly did not have pets, nor did the person who lived in the apartment before her.
Okay.
Right. But one important thing of note is that M, our third player in this, made fishing flies,
Oh.
which utilized a lot of like different hair and dyed hair.
Okay.
Okay. So they search his house, his camper, and all of that.
That would explain the dye as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So, like,
Wow, we just made that make sense. I didn't know where that deer hair was going.
particularly pink deer hair. But,
Right.
right. So, this is such a messy case, right?
It is. There's so many people involved and so many crazy stories, and then these weird bits and pieces like samurai swords and deer hair.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And aliens.
And aliens. So, what ends up kind of happening here is there's like lots of suspicions going on, but like they're like, we have built up a good case against like the husband and the mistress. We're moving forward with those. We've got matches with like the hair, we've got blood evidence, we've got like the domestic violence issue.
The spit.
We've got the spit, we've got blood matching, we've got all those things. So this is particularly tricky because like they are moving forward with what is a murder case with no body.
Right. And can't they take into account everything that she said earlier about like if I go missing?
Yeah. So
like and the domestic violence, like all of that together, just there's no other way to
right.
point this.
Yeah. So like those are all things that are like we can move forward with a murder case even though we don't have a body.
Well, and she seems to clearly be a person who, if she was still out there, she would have contacted her parents or Ernie or her boss by now.
Right.
She wouldn't have just
Right.
let herself run off.
No.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And like we have all this like stuff like the blood to like say like something happened, right?
Right.
So everyone is paying attention to this case in New Mexico, and it starts to like become like a nationwide kind of coverage because of the weird stuff. The alien theme, like the swords, like the missing body, etc. What ends up happening is, all of this process takes quite a while. The police have looked for Girly's body in various locations. But what we're talking about is like rural New Mexico, outside of Albuquerque. There's just a lot of landscape. There's mine shafts. There's all these kinds of things going on. So it's like a massive undertaking.
Okay.
But what ends up happening is the husband decides that he is going to plead guilty to the murder.
Okay.
So there's not going to be a trial for him.
Is this like the first truth he's ever told in his entire life?
Maybe. So he has maintained a relationship with the mistress this entire time. They have been writing letters back and forth to one another. Okay. At some point, the mistress in particular makes some threatening statements about like people getting what they deserve or whatever, about some of the witnesses that would be called in the trial of both her and the husband.
So
right?
basically threatening them?
Basically, she does not name names.
Okay.
There's some like threats there. So they've been ordered not to write to one another, but they do this like thing where each of them writes to a third party and that third party passes on the information. So they've been maintaining this relationship. And before the husband pleads guilty in 2000, he goes to like the first trial, which is about his violation of the restraining order way back when.
Right.
Right. And he's found guilty. The following year, he pleads guilty in exchange for a choice of where he's imprisoned.
Is that even a thing?
Apparently it is.
Oh my God. Okay.
So he has decided for some unknown reason that he wants to be in prison in Wyoming.
Maybe he has a girlfriend there.
Maybe. So in exchange, he is also supposed to reveal what he knows about the location of Girly's body.
Okay.
So a few days later, they bring him back in, and he basically says, I don't know anything. Right? Which pisses off the prosecution, who's like, you said you were going to tell us, so we're not going to let you go to Wyoming.
Right.
Meanwhile, his lawyers are like, ha ha, we worded it in such a way that like he could say something like that.
So he still gets to go to Wyoming?
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. They try though, like to like push him again. So he's brought in again about questioning on this case to see like if he can reveal anything else. He starts talking a lot, and it really seems that like he's trying to protect his mistress in some ways. So his story, and it's important to note this is a story, so I'm not going to give it too much credence or space, but he basically says that like the mistress was not involved at all, that it was M who did everything.
Okay.
His story is that he needed to make sure that the mistress had an alibi. So she was taking care of him at the time of Girly's disappearance, and that M was supposed to go and kidnap/murder Girly, and that he was supposed to arrive later to clean up the scene.
Okay.
Okay. So he says that the kidnapping and murder took place between 5:15 and 6 p.m.
But we had a phone call at 7:03.
We did have a phone call at 7:03. So immediately like the questioner knows that like this is all fabricated.
Yeah.
Right? Because the timelines do not match up.
Mm-mm.
At all. He says that like he needed to come up with a way to get the mistress out of the house that he could then go and like clean up the scene. So he says he told her he needed medications, and so she left to do that. He goes to the apartment and discovers that M left it a bigger mess than he thought.
Okay.
Okay.
This doesn't line up though, because you said there was his saliva and her blood
Yeah.
on Girly's clothing.
Well, so, I know.
Guy.
So he says he goes back to his house where he's getting a type of acid. Now,
Sounds
neighbors,
like he does a lot of acid.
not that kind of acid. Well, neighbors definitely see him arrive at his house. Now, the neighbors are like peeking out the window. These are different neighbors than the.
Okay, not the helpful neighbor.
These are also helpful neighbors, but
So many helpful neighbors.
So,
thank goodness.
they're looking out the window and they see him arrive in the mistress's car, and they say has like covered his skin in something to make it like black, so that he's not like visible in the dark.
Okay.
Okay. He goes into the house, turns on some lights, gets back in the car, and leaves.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Okay.
Put this stuff on his skin.
Yes. Now, he does say that he went back to his house, but he denies that anything was on his skin.
Okay.
So he then says he went back to be cared for by the mistress.
What's he getting cared for from it? He sounds perfectly capable.
Oh, yeah.
Is it because we're still talking about leukemia? Is that
Yeah.
why we're... Okay.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh. But he has time to like...
I know.
Okay.
Right. The man keeps vials of blood in the fridge.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? Right. So he says like what his plan is he's got to get the mistress back out of the house, and then his plan is to go back to Girly's apartment to like clean up. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he says what he does is he ends up grabbing like 2 vials of blood from his stash of blood. He says that's all he has, and he accidentally drops one. So then he is stuck with the 1 vial of blood, which happens to be the mistress's vial of blood.
Darn it.
Right.
I hate when that happens.
And he says his plan is to go to the apartment and place this other blood and mix it with the acid that would degrade the DNA to give like the investigators an idea that like there was another person, right?
This is just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said like, oopsie, it didn't work. But that's how the mistress's blood ended up in the apartment.
That's like the most logical reason I've ever heard.
Right.
God.
So this is the story he tells. And like you can see like it's really built up to defend the mistress, right? Like, I don't know, like honestly, like thinking about this case makes me think like he does seem to have like a large amount of affection for this mistress, right?
Right. I mean, eventually he has to have affection for someone, right?
I guess. Also, because we can't escape the alien theme here.
Right.
Because one of the stories that is circulating is that the mistress believes that she is an alien queen.
Mm-hmm.
Not just that he is an alien, but she is also alien. And she's an alien queen and must battle other alien queens for supremacy. And so one of the angles that they were working on was like, did she attack Girly because she perceived her as like
An alien queen.
an alien queen? And he says like, that's not true. She does think she's an alien queen, but she believes that she is fighting against like incoming alien queens from outer space.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. It's unfortunate that so much is happening here because now we're like almost distracted by all this weirdness,
Mm-hmm.
and Girly is still
Missing.
missing and most likely dead.
Yeah. Right.
It's sad because like those other, things are so fascinating and interesting and we want to hear about it and talk about it. But I'm wondering, like, at the time, did it distract a lot from the case too? Because every time they're trying to do something, there's like some more weirdness.
Yeah. Like this case is like wrapped in all of these like weird things. And so like you're right, it does say like who is Girly and like what happened to her. Like we have a woman who was experiencing domestic violence who'd been clearly lied to by the person that she trusted, who believed that she was like becoming a mom through adoption and having like that taken away from her, right?
And
Like
so far away from her family.
far away from her family, scared,
Yeah.
scared enough that like she took all of these dramatic steps for safety that like didn't end up protecting her at all.
Right. It's sad.
Yeah. So to kind of like make sure that we don't spend too much time on them, the mistress also goes to trial. Hers actually goes through the whole trial process. She is found guilty. This is a big thing because in New Mexico, you can be charged with murder even if you might not have done the murder yourself.
Okay. Well, I think that's okay.
Right. Like if you think about like
That seems to make sense to me for
right.
this case.
Yeah, like if you think about like say in California when we are talking about like say Charles Manson, right? Like who didn't do the actual
But really did.
but really did.
Yeah.
Right. So she is convicted of murder and a bunch of other charges and she is sentenced to prison. She will die in prison. It's not a life sentence, but it is based on the amount of years that she was given. Which then brings us to M, right? They call a second grand jury because what they are hoping to do is to build up enough evidence to move forward charges of murder against him.
Okay.
So at the moment like of that time, he had like a few like what are felony charges but didn't include murder.
Okay. Now, he told people that he was connected,
Yes.
and the husband and the mistress said he was connected.
Yes.
But was there any DNA evidence of him? Because I know there was her blood, the husband's saliva.
Right.
Was there anything with him?
So there's some like pieces of evidence.
Oh, there was the hair.
The hair.
That's right. The
yeah.
hair from the
Yeah.
fishing.
And a few other pieces of evidence. But they're like, okay, we're going to like move this forward. Also, we're going to bring in the husband during this grand jury because his testimony will like help us secure these charges against M. Because he's now like very much said, M did the killing. I did the cleaning. Also, M did it because I told him to.
Okay.
Okay. But what ends up happening is the husband is brought as a witness. The grand jury situation is so convoluted that like the grand jury members are like, this is way out of our framework. Mm-hmm. Also, like, do we trust this guy? So they actually opt not to move forward murder charges against him.
Really?
Yeah, because basically the husband creates like such a weird spectacle that they just feel like really uncomfortable. So what he ends up being charged with is some counts of evidence tampering.
Okay.
Right. It's his turn to go to trial. He does a plea bargain as well. He pleads guilty to what amounts to like 3 misdemeanor charges of tampering. So they like bring those down to misdemeanors, and he ends up getting 10 months of probation instead.
Wow.
They seem to have made that decision to move into that rather than going to a full-blown trial because in addition, one of the main like witnesses, one of the police officers who discovered some of the evidence against him, had committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
in the intervening time. And so they lost one of their main witnesses to some of the evidence that was found. So he got probation.
Okay. And
Yeah.
do we know that he actually was part of the murder?
Subsequently, like he has tried to clear his name. It's, there are these like evidence links, right? But he was never formally charged with anything.
Okay.
There's occasionally these questions that arise of like what happened to Girly and where might she be? And people have tried like various means of finding her. So there were like official police searches, at least three of them, which didn't find anything. It's unlikely that they'll pursue that in the future because of the high cost of police searches. So at the time in the like late 90s, early 2000s, each search was like about $20,000. And so financially, they're not going to necessarily do that. One of the UFO club members used a pendulum over a map to discover where Girly might be and said they felt she was in like the foothills near the mistress's apartment. The lady who owned the like motel situation.
Right. Judy?
Yeah, yeah. She contacted Sylvia Brown. Do you know who
I
Sylvia
don't
Brown
know
is?
who Sylvia Brown is. Who's Sylvia Brown?
Sylvia Brown. So this is like 1990s era um, talk show daytime television trivia that apparently you did not watch at the time. But
Could it be because I was in Canada?
I don't know, maybe. Did you get the Montel Williams show in Canada?
I did get Montel Williams.
Okay, so one of Montel's frequent guests was a psychic named Sylvia Brown.
Oh, good. Okay, so I probably didn't actually pay attention to that kind of thing.
Probably not.
No.
No. So this woman pays Sylvia Brown $700 for a phone reading to like get info on where her body, Girly's body, might be.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I think I vaguely remember. Well, she was blonde, right?
Yeah, like
Okay,
blondish red
I think I
hair.
vaguely remember like maybe seeing something about her, but yeah.
Right, because she was kind of everywhere
Right. It would have been a
at the time.
brief moment of her being
Yeah.
everywhere. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking I might remember now.
Yeah. So Sylvia says that Girly is buried like near where they were searching, that they walked right over her during their initial search out in the desert and believes that's where she would be found. And the assistant district attorney who was working the case at the time, he actually says like none of what was relayed to me seemed very far-fetched. I always felt that we walked close to where she is.
Okay.
So it's like just kind of like this general sense like everyone was so close to
Right.
her. But also, who knows? There were also rumors that M might have buried her in concrete, and this is what the husband says. And then there were also rumors that M had access to like a pool of water that was highly acidic, and that's might have been what happened. But the fact is like this is a situation where we know really clearly what might have happened to Girly, but like there's just like the final step that's not been taken. And that her family in Malaysia just like won't have those answers.
I don't think, yeah, they won't have closure, but everything's just so horrible that they've had to endure already.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened to the son?
He ended up actually being adopted, right? So, who his birth mother is, I'm not sure, but a woman ends up adopting him. She has adopted a few other children, and then she moved her family to Panama. She and the son end up finding out a lot about Girly and what happened to her, largely because of a book called September Sacrifice that was written about this, which is definitely a book that I read before talking to you today about it. September Sacrifice is a book about Girly's disappearance and murder, and it was written by someone who was a reporter in the early days of the case.
Okay.
And so he did so much research to figure out like and to link all of these pieces together.
So is it worth reading for somebody who wants to learn more about Girly?
Yeah. So this is actually how her son finds out, or Girly's.
Well, he was He was her son for a time.
Yeah. Now, the son is now estranged from his adopted family, but his adopted mother says he is okay, and I want the women who took care of him, who tried to save him early on, to know that he is okay.
That poor kid.
Yeah.
Like what he's been through in his life.
Mm-hmm. So her story is like so many stories where women are leaving their partners. And those sensational aspects of it kind of like mask what happened, which is really really a story of fear and desperation and trying to make yourself safe.
Now we are going to listen to Amy's poem, The Abduction Narrative, read by Raven Goodwin. Raven has been acting since she was 4 years old, with childhood roles in Disney's Good Luck Charlie and Just Jordan on Nickelodeon. More recently, she has worked on shows like Being Mary Jane and the Showtime comedy Smilf. She also played Denise Clark Bradford in the biopic The Clark Sisters, the First Ladies of Gospel, alongside Missy Elliott, Queen Latifah, and Mary J. Blige.
The Abduction Narrative, Girly Chu Hassenkopf, 36, missing since September 9th, 1999, from Albuquerque, New Mexico. 1. Capture. On the drive home, she still finds bits of glass, incandescent, in the stillness of the car. Wind scuttling through a hole in her window, symmetrical like a fist. Again, surrounded by the gray light of her room, she leaves an offering to the goddess of mercy, poured from the tap. From behind, she cannot see the approach of the other woman, whose skin phosphoresces with the waning day. And soon, like some tentacle creature, the woman is everywhere, pulling. 2. Procedure. She once helped a boy create a spaceship from cardboard and duct tape. Smooth ridges over angles, a thing of industry now looped around her wrist, pulled tight across lips. It is like this that they examine her body, leave their mark. 3. Tour. Within a triangle, things are lost. There is a house on the moon where he once told her he has been alive for several thousand years. Yet still, there was a strength in his hands the time he wrapped them around her throat. There is a house where he made love to his creature, her skin glittering under arcs of light. And there is her home, the fiery orange carpet creased with bleach, and the goddess of mercy keeping watch. 4. Time. On the road to Magdalena, sound is cyclical. This is how minutes go missing. There is just breathing, the dry sound of gestures, voices. It is easy to forget what came before, the scent of jackfruit and fig, the weight of air before a monsoon, the electric blue heat that used to be love. 5. Return. The narrative leaves space for her body's return, a ritual passage from one place to another, the ability to be left with a sense of foreboding. It remains empty. 6. Aftermath. In the distance, like bingo lights, beams of light flash by on the highways, incandescent lanes scaling through the sand. Here, the air is cleansed of water, the breeze heavy with iron, as the world seems to collapse in on itself. This is the way stars burn out.
For more information about our show or to check out other shows on the network, please visit evergreenpodcast.com. Bye, Vanessa.
Bye, Amy.